Now we come to the essence of the Constitution itself, which is embodied in the 9th and 10th Amendments, the limitation of the powers of the federal government. Let us first make the point that nationalism is a step away from freedom. We have a federation, not a national government. The states, united, formed our government. They formed a compact called a federal government, not a national government. Now let us give a 20th century example of moving from a federal government to a national one. Germany. The German government after World War I was a federal government made up of many German states. These states had been independent countries prior to 1870 and pulled together into a united Germany under the Kaiser at that time. In 1933, when Hitler came to power with his German Workers' National Socialist Party, or Nazi, they wiped out the German State Federation and imposed a national government with power, not just over the individual, but over the German states as well, with a national police to enforce it. Our founders were worried that once the federal government was established, they would move toward making it over into a national government with universal power over the states. As a result, they adopted the 9th and 10th Amendments. Keep in mind that these were sovereign states agreeing to unite into a federal government, a partnership, not a government that would rule everything. The 9th Amendment reads, "The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people." The Constitution was written to delineate the powers of the government and the responsibilities of each branch of government. It was a document that limited government. In other words, you can do this and this, whereas the Bill of Rights helped make sure that everyone understood that the government could not do certain things, especially anything not written down specifically in the Constitution. The 9th Amendment was written to basically state that in case we forgot to point things out, unless the government was specifically given the power in the Constitution, then government can't do it. And that even if some rights are not mentioned, then you cannot deny the people of these rights. One of these rights was so fundamental, it was assumed it would never be violated, the right to life. So it was never included in the Bill of Rights. Much has changed since that time. The 10th Amendment says much of the same thing, only in stronger language. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. In other words, if a specific power was not given to the federal government within the Constitution, the federal government could not assume that power. Those powers are with the people and the states, not the federated government. The 10th Amendment can be used to stop the federal government from taking unto itself powers that are not delegated to it. State legislatures, using the 10th Amendment, can nullify something the federal government is trying to impose on the people of the state or the state government. There is a nullifying movement in the country formed to educate and impel state governments to stop the excesses of the federal government. Whenever enough states have done so, history shows that the federal government backs away from imposing unconstitutional edicts. In other words, a state can pass a resolution calling for the nullification of an unconstitutional federal law or edict, and that cannot be enforced within the state. If enough states do so, the federal law or edict goes away, since it's unenforceable. Now, one of the most famous of such a procedure was the Fugitive Slave Act, which was to force the return from non-slave states of slaves who had fled slavery in the South. The northern states, by and large, ignored the law. One of the most shocking assertions made by a president of the United States is that he has full powers simply by declaring a state of emergency, regardless of the reason. This is an edict, not legislation or even permission by the people, and it violates the 10th Amendment. This thinking and process has developed over the years of the 20th century and culminated in the Nixon administration. When he entered into the Federal Register, he had full powers if and when he would declare a state of emergency. When Nixon did that, very few noticed, and those who did notice only a few protested or even pointed it out to others. Now a president can think that he has these powers simply by declaring he has them, by signing a piece of paper and handing out the pens to those in attendance. The governors do the same, and in the coronavirus pandemic of 2020, use such assumed powers to rule as dictators over their states, in complete violation of the federal and state constitutions. Neither the Congress or the state legislatures stand up to this type of usurpation today. Unconstitutional laws and edicts completely violate the idea of a government of we the people. And the media does nothing to point out this problem to the people. Neither do the schools. Now that we've gone through the Bill of Rights, you can see that much of these rights have been eroded. The very spirit of the Bill of Rights has been eroded. The flame of liberty in the hearts of the people has been dimmed, and not enough people stand up for their rights for 4 reasons. 1, they do not understand them due to being poorly educated in our schools. 2, many of these rights have been distorted from their original intent. 3, they've been programmed not to stand up for their rights lest they be labeled extremists. And 4, and most importantly, the people who do understand are not well enough organized to do so. Loners get picked off one by one. People organized are hard to ignore. This is why people need to become involved in organization. Our founders would be called extremists today. We must not engage in violence, nor can we back away from demanding that our rights be adhered to, regardless of the circumstances. One person standing up can be eliminated, but if everyone does it, they cannot be ignored. For instance, during the pandemic of 2020, a business owner who defied an executive order opened his or her business. They were picked off. If every business had defied the order, the government would have had to back down. As we've pointed out, one modern method of abrogating our rights is when a president declares a state of national emergency. In this manner, the president takes on the mantle of a dictator by simply stating the emergency and signing a piece of paper and posting it into the Federal Register. It completely bypasses the people and establishes, for all practical purposes, an authoritarian government ruled by one person. In a free country, this cannot be allowed. And, by the way, it cannot be allowed even if the edict is for a good cause, because it establishes the idea that it's okay to do something this way. The way we can restore our rights is by enough people understanding them, appreciating them, and demanding that those in government adhere to them. The spirit of the Bill of Rights must be restored. And the only way this can be done is if enough people, such as yourself, start educating others about the Bill of Rights and what they mean to us today and into tomorrow.